Okay, we are live now. Okay. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm very excited to present this webinar on behalf of the Caleb Chapman Soundhouse. We have a couple special guests involved in this, and applying for music schools is a very important and tricky thing. And so we wanted to bring you the experts from the field. Steve Lippman has a company called Inside Music Schools, but his experience has been 40 years at the Berklee College of Music, of which 26 of that was as head of admissions. So he's seen many applications over the years through that, and he also taught it at the Berklee College of Music as well. And we have David Fish from Catawba University College in North Carolina. David is in charge of their popular music program, and he also teaches music technology and music business, and he has a PhD in ethnomusicology. And he's also been involved in the Association of Popular Music Education, which is an association for music educators who are teaching popular music across the country. My name is Andrew Sermani. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Caleb Chapman Soundhouse, and I am also a professor at California State University Northridge, one of the top music schools in the world. And I teach music industry, which is where I come from in the background there. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Steve Lippman, and I want to start off with a question that I want you to address to the audience, but I want to encourage everybody in the audience to post your questions on the YouTube chat, and we will bring them up to our guest speakers throughout the event. So Steve, how does a music student decide if going to music college is really in their best interests? And if so, whether they should consider a conservatory or a liberal arts college or a university?
So I think those are two different questions, perhaps, Andrew, and thank you for hosting this tonight and for inviting David and I. I think my answer to the first question is, should you be a music major? I think that it chooses you, perhaps, rather than you choosing it. What do I mean by that? If you wake up each day and you cannot live without music, you have to have music in your life, I think that's a pretty good answer for whether you choose music as a college major. Now, certainly there are students that have more than one interest. They may have an academic interest, or they may have a few different musical interests. But I think if you find that you need to have music in your life daily in school, I think then you need to seriously consider whether music should be your college career. Anything to add to that, David?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, do you need to be a musician? It can be a difficult career path. It can also be a wonderful career path. It can be a very lucrative career path, but it can be difficult. So one of the things is, do you need to be a musician? Now, and I think Andrew probably has the same experience with his students. Musicians are wound differently than the rest of the world, right? I mean, we dedicate ourselves to the oscillation of air molecules, for heaven's sakes, right? So, are you part of that tribe? Do you feel you're one of those ones that cares about music? Something that on the one hand is completely unnecessary, but then nobody can do without, right? I mean, so I think that's part of it. Are you part of that tribe? And when musicians get together, they feel it, right?
Andrew, another piece to that is my wife went to college for drama and for theater. And her very, very first day of orientation, the teacher said to them, look around. If you can do anything else besides acting, do it. Because you probably will. This is not for the faint or weak at heart. There's going to be a lot of difficult times, ups and downs. So you make sure that if you can't do anything else, you belong here. If you can, you may not be here all that long. So I don't know if that applies to the music industry as well.
No,
but
for sure it does.
It's certainly something to consider. Your second question about the difference between a conservatory or a liberal arts college or university, that's a little more detailed. I'll try to make it as simple and direct as possible. A conservatory is predominantly an institution that only teaches music or the arts. Nobody goes to a conservatory to be a pre-med student or a psychologist or an accountant. Let's talk only about music conservatories for the moment, because there are conservatories that also teach dance and drama. But a music conservatory, everybody going there probably intends to be in the music industry in one way or another. Some of them are going to be performers, some of them are going to be composers, some of them are going to be songwriters, some of them are going to be music educators, but they're all in the music world. That's what a conservatory is all about. These people eat, sleep, drink, breathe music. A liberal arts college is usually an institution of a medium size, could be 3,000, 4,000, 7,000 students, and there's a variety of majors. You can study music at a liberal arts college, but you can study any number of other academic interests. It could be science, it could be math, it can be whatever. Universities, of course, everyone knows a university in their town. It's a large institution, usually somewhere around 20,000 students, perhaps 30,000 students. And a university is an umbrella under which many colleges are formed. It may be the College of Art and Science, it may be physical science, it may be a number of colleges under the umbrella of a university. And you're going to run across students that are studying every possible interest, music included. The conservatories tend to be on the smallish side. They tend to be around 1,000 students, give or take. So that's the difference between a conservatory, a liberal arts college, and a university in a nutshell.
I think that actually spills into what I believe is the next question. There's, to quantify what Steve said a little bit, there's a difference between a Bachelor of Music degree and a Bachelor of Arts degree in music. Now, there are some others as well, Bachelor of Science degree, but just for the moment, this Bachelor of Music as opposed to Bachelor of Arts in music. If you go to a liberal arts college, which is Catawba, essentially Catawba is, about half of your hours going to be of the 120 credit hours that you need to graduate. About half of them are going to be in music, if that's what you major in, and the other half are going to be in history and ecology and philosophy and in psychology and in other sorts of courses. In the liberal arts world, we want to educate more rounded individuals, right? That's the goal of it, right? So a Bachelor of Music degree, on the other hand, you'd be maybe what, and Andrew might be able to help with this, about maybe 90 of the 120 hours would be in your major, maybe 3/4 of the hours would be in your major, and only 25% would be general.
In California, in the California state system, it's 132 units for Bachelor of Music and 120 for Bachelor of Arts. The difference is usually full hour lessons as opposed to half-hour lessons, and that stuff. Well,
so you don't get the wrong idea. That doesn't mean that a liberal arts Bachelor of Arts degree is a watered down degree necessarily. Like I teach a lot of songwriters. Well, we want them to understand things to sing about. We want them to understand about religion and the ecology and the history and so forth when they sing. And it actually makes them, what we'd like to think, better or fuller people to be fuller songwriters. So there, I think there is an argument for certain types of musicians to go to a liberal arts school.
So just to tie up the differences between these degrees, I think that basically there are 4 types of degrees, and I'll mention what they are. And the difference usually is the ratio of music to non-music. So the degree with the most music subject matter is a BM, or a Bachelor of Music. The next level, I don't mean to say down, I don't want to say that, is probably either a BFA, which is a Bachelor of Fine Arts, or perhaps a BS, which is a Bachelor of Science. Once again, the ratio of music to other majors or other subjects is going to determine what kind of a degree you get. And then the fourth one is what David described as a Bachelor of Arts. So you've got a Bachelor of Music, a Bachelor of Fine Arts, a Bachelor of Science, and a Bachelor of Arts. Those are the 4 degrees you're generally going to have available to you.
And to add just one little thing to that, a Bachelor of Science degree is often for a more technical field that's less performing or musically directly musical. It might be production, might be music business, something like that, are often Bachelor of Science degrees.
Okay, so now the student has decided, yes, music school is for me. I want to be part of this tribe. I want to go and study. Now they get ready and they get their applications going. How do they know what is the right school for them? Which ones should they apply to? How do they separate the different programs that are offered at all these wonderful schools and know, yes, this is a good fit for me?
I think before you answer that question for yourself, the student has to decide, first of all, am I interested in a conservatory environment, a liberal arts college, or a university, or perhaps a few of them? I have students all the time that are deciding, I could go to a conservatory, but I could perhaps equally enjoy university life. So we will help them find the right fit in both of those categories. But before you can figure out what schools are right for you, you need to find out what environment, what the type of school that you would wish to be at. I think this next question to ask yourself is, what do you really want to study? What is going to be your major? And this, because all schools don't have all the majors. So if you want to be a music production and audio engineering major, you've got to begin to investigate and research which schools offer that major and which schools don't. Every school that has a music department may not have music production. So first question is the kind of school. I think the next question is what my major may be. And now you have the tools, so to speak, to go out and do the research and finding out what schools have that major. And that's the beginning point of beginning to filter out certain schools. But if a school doesn't have music production, then you're likely not to be interested or applying to that school. So, Andrew, starting with what kind of school, followed up by what kind of major you want, then you're ready to start researching and looking for schools.
And what are some of the different concentrations and majors within music that we could talk about, so the students are aware? Oh, there's a lot of different areas like technology. Yeah. So what are the areas that students can consider?
I would say that if it's going on in the music industry, there's a major for it somewhere. If you can picture everything that goes into making a recording, all right? Somebody had to write the material. Somebody had to, a composer, somebody had to arrange the material. Somebody has to play the material. Somebody has to record the material. Somebody has to conduct the material. Somebody has to engineer, okay? We've just mentioned already 6 or 8 vocations within the music industry just to make a simple recording. I'm speaking generally, okay? So that implies that there are majors for performers. There are majors for a composer. There's a major for arrangers or orchestrators that take the song and produce it or arrange it for 10 pieces or 15 pieces. Then there's, of course, the engineer in the booth that's running all the knobs and recording it. And then there's often a producer that's in charge of the whole thing. So there are probably 12 or 13 or 14 majors in various colleges to choose from. Not all colleges are going to have all 12. Most of them will have performance as a major, for sure. Composition. And when we use the term composition, we could be talking about writing serious classical music, writing jazz music, or writing songs, songwriting, or writing film music, or writing music for games. So they all come under the heading of composition. There's, of course, in most schools, music education, which is required to teach in a public school system at any level. Those three are almost always going to be found: performance, composition, and music education. And then there are schools that will have production, engineering, songwriting, and other types of majors.
And music education is a tremendous field. There's many jobs in music education at the not only the elementary but middle school and high school and collegiate level. And of course, you'll if you work in public education, you'll have to earn your teaching credential. But it could be a very lucrative in terms of just a career stability, in terms of having benefits and a retirement plan, things that don't per se exist in the private sector very much.
And allowing you to have a type of schedule that you can still gig,
Right.
and you have the summers free.
Right. Yeah.
So-
So don't forget about that. And then, of course, in the area that I teach in, which is music business, which is kind of new in the field. I mean, it's been around since the 80s and stuff, but it's been more popular. When I got my bachelor of music degree, there was no music business program at my college, and it didn't come till after. So that's a whole other area that's the behind the scenes musicians.
Andrew, can you mention a couple of careers that may emanate from a music business degree? What are the kinds of jobs and responsibilities that emanate out of a music business program?
Well, the major sectors are music publishing. That without intellectual property and copyrights, we don't really have a business, because you can't make money on that. So music publishing is a big area, and that's been a steady area for many years. And it that starts in the Constitution of the United States and the protection of intellectual property and the useful arts. So you've got that. And there's licensing involved. You're watching a lot of movies on Netflix right now. Well, watch the music credits. You see licensing represented. You see all the songs that they're using and licensing for that. So you have that. There's many areas of copyright. Performing rights. You've heard about ASCAP and BMI and CSAC and GMR. They're tracking royalties for public performance, and then music that's sold on records, et cetera, or even digital or streaming. There's a revenue there. So publishing is an area. Recording is still a very important area. In fact, it's been growing tremendously since the advent of legal streaming services. The record companies are making a lot of money again after going through the Napster period. So we still need to break a new artist by releasing their recordings no matter what. So the recording industry is still a very strong, viable business. And there's a lot of indie record labels out there in addition to the three major labels. Then you also have a live performance. Now, that was kind of the leading area before COVID. It was doing really well before COVID. It's faced obviously a lot of challenges now because venues are closed and festivals are closed. But when we start getting back into person again, it's going to thrive as usual, because people, there's nothing like going to a real live performance. You can't replicate that. So you have live performance, and then you also have music and media, film and television and video games, which is a very lucrative business. I mean, the video game industry is larger than the music industry and the film industry combined, and that needs music.
And you know what else, Andrew? When you stop and think about every major artist in almost all fields of music, classical music, pop music, they all have an agent that gets them jobs.
Right.
They all have a manager that helps them run their business. They often have a promotions company working for them to promote their name. So artist management in those fields is very, very big. I mean, think about the tens of thousands of artists in the field of music. They all require a manager, an agent, and who knows what else.
They require a business manager to manage the money. They require a lawyer to negotiate their record contracts and publishing agreements.
And then, of course, you spoke of live music. Every venue is managed by a company usually, and on the scene managers. I mean, those venues don't get set up, and then stage doesn't get set up by itself. Somebody has to manage that hall, that arena, So venue management is also grows out of the music business. There's a lot of opportunities that come from being a music business type person.
Yeah, and here's another huge area that people don't normally think about, but it surrounds everything, and that's music products. If you've ever been to a NAMM show and you see the piano manufacturers and the publishers and the instrument companies and all, sound systems and lighting and musical software and sequencers and all that stuff, the music products is a $17 billion global business. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
That's right. So if a student comes around to thinking, I want to be in the music industry, and I think I want to go to college to study music business, now they've made tremendous steps. They would look at schools that offer music business as a major. And if school A, B, or C does not offer that music business major, then that's not probably a likely choice for them.
Right.
So that's the progression of figuring out where to go.
I would add just a couple of quick things to that. Beyond that, the fit. Does it feel like the right college or university to you? The ethos of the place, the type of students that go there. And ideally, it's so important if you can hang out with students, with music majors. At my school, we love that, for a prospective student to come in and actually spend a night in the dorm with parents don't necessarily want that, but spend a night or a weekend with our music majors. So you can often get a great feeling about your fit and the fit between you and the college just through that human aspect of it that really doesn't have anything much to do with the curriculum. The other thing would be, which coast do you want to be on? Do you want to be in a big city or you want to be in a small college town? So those are other considerations to make beyond what, is in the curriculum.
Right. Every institution has its own culture. I mean, if you're at the University of Michigan and you have their incredible marching band and you've got football and, everything, it's a different vibe than you are at a liberal arts college for sure.
Even that demonic Ohio State right down the block.
So, Andrew, that's what David just said and what you just stated is very important. There are many, many criteria to choosing where to go to spend 4 years. I don't know, if I were to make a list of them, there might be 12, 15, maybe as many as 20 pieces of criteria. And David made reference to the size of the school is important, where it's located is important, many, many things. However, I would just like to offer our students that are listening, I believe personally that the 3 most important criteria that you can't really do without. Okay, you can do without a gorgeous cafeteria where the food is gourmet. You can do without that for 4 years. Okay, you can live on a soft mattress for 4 years if you need to. You could be on a campus that maybe it doesn't have a swimming pool and trees and grass. However, the 3 things you have to have for it to be the right fit, as David said, is number 1, the curriculum. The curriculum has to be selected so as to train you to do what you want to do in the field of music. If it doesn't have the right curriculum, you're not going to be able to continue in the field that you want to doing those things. I believe the second most important thing is the faculty. The faculty has to be top-notch and be able to teach that curriculum with great skill and experience. If you have a great curriculum and not a great faculty, you're not going to really be able to make use of that. And the last thing, and this may surprise people, and David made reference to it, is the peers, your student group. Does this institution attract students with similar goals as you and a similar work ethic as you and similar musical creativity as you? If any of those 3 are missing, it's not going to be necessarily a good experience. Okay, if the food's not great, it's fine. If the rehearsal rooms are not perfect, so what? Okay, you can make do with those compromises. However, you can't make do without the perfect curriculum for you, the faculty, and the peer group.
Right. And I would like to echo that, just to, who are you going to study with on your instrument? You have to do the research and see who are the faculty. There's incredible music faculty all over the country and all these institutions, but you got to find who's the right one for you to be your private teacher and whose ensembles you want to play with. And you have to do some research. Luckily, it's very easy because it's all online. You could just go and check out who the faculty are, who's teaching the instruments, what are the ensembles, what are some of the programs that they do, understand what the curriculum easy. It's very easy to do research on your own. You have to spend some time to do that. You wouldn't apply for a company unless you research that company in advance. Who's their executive management team? What new products have they released? What markets are they going into? We are so lucky to have all that stuff at our fingertips now. Spend the time, put the energy in before you make that commitment.
The one cautionary maybe addendum to that, I'd say, is there's a difference between teaching colleges and teaching institutions and research institutions. So at big research institutions, there may be just incredible faculty there. Undergraduates never see them. Right? They wind up studying from teaching assistants so I would make sure not only the quality of the faculty, but also access, engagement with that faculty is really important.
So that brings us to a term that maybe not everyone that's listening here today has heard before, and that's trial lessons. What is a trial lesson? As Andrew just said, if you're a drummer, and let's say you're a rock drummer or a jazz drummer or in that contemporary field, all right, there's likely to be many, many, many places you could go that have excellent percussion faculty or drum teachers. One way to figure out what school might be right for you is to ask a teacher to give you a trial lesson. Most college and university teachers are used to being asked that, and they will agree to do that. And you will, either in person or via Zoom, take a lesson with a drum instructor, let's say at USC, and see whether you click. Do you like that teacher? What is he telling you about your level and ability? You're going to learn a lot from a trial lesson because they're going to tell you what your strong points are and what your weaker points and challenges are, and what should you be studying over the course of the next year or year and a half. You'll also get to see whether that's a person that you think you can see studying with for a number of years. So don't be shy about doing some research, finding some teachers that appeal to you. Their bios are always up there on the website, and asking for a trial lesson. Some of them,
and if they're not willing to offer it to you, or at least chat with you, I mean, that may be an indicator that they're not going to be that available to you as a student.
Some trial lesson teachers will do it for free, and some will expect you to pay them their regular private lesson fee. But it's a good investment, especially if you say, oh, I don't like that teacher at all. I don't think I want to study with that teacher, and I don't want to go to that school. It was a worthwhile $100 to find out something before you wind up on that campus and realizing, I don't want to study with this person. So trial lessons are something to consider.
Steve, we had a question come in here that it's maybe a good juncture to answer it. Yeah. One of them, what if a student feels sure that she wants to go to music school that also offers liberal arts, but hasn't figured out what to major yet? That being me being the liberal arts representative here, I guess, that's one of the beauties of the liberal arts. You're given time to figure out what you actually specifically want to major in. In fact, it's often encouraged. At my school, you can't declare a major until after your first semester.
So there are schools that don't even allow you to have a major going into it because they want you to be there for a semester or a year, and then with some background and experience behind you, you choose a major. However, most colleges do allow you to apply with choosing a major. However, many students change their major. I think that David earlier today quoted a statistic that it's a very low number of students that actually graduate from college on the originally intended major. That means that a lot of students are thinking they want to be this, but when they get into school, they find out they really want to be that. And
it's even more than that. What I was quoting was that something like nowadays, only 25% of college students graduate from the college that they initially go to. So it's not only figuring out your major; it's what's the right college. So that's quite what's the right college. So that's quite common.
Speaking to the academics and to that student that asked that question, every music school and every music degree requires a minimum of liberal arts study. You can't get a degree from any state in this country without having at least 20 to 24 academic credits. So even if you have 126 credits that you're required to take to graduate, okay, 100 of them are going to be music, or 90 is going to be music, and the other 24 to 35 will be academics. You're still going to have to take English composition, English literature, Western civilization, psychology, a math, a science, etc. So don't think that if you go to music school, it's 100% music. There are academics that are required. Now, if you go to a liberal arts college or a university, there's likely to be perhaps more academics required and a larger, probably, would you say, menu of academics. So if a person is truly, truly equally interested in academic subject matter, along with music, a university setting or a college setting is probably a good consideration.
Very good. There was a prior question, specifically, let's get into the money part. This one is, are there any ways to get financial aid for housing other than the FAFSA?
Well, when you receive money as a result of filing a FAFSA, it's not designated for the dormitory or for your food or for your books. If you get a Pell Grant or you get a student loan or whatever it might be, you're getting a sum of money that you can apply it as you see fit. Usually, tuition comes first and foremost. You've got to pay the tuition bill to go to school. So most students that get money as a result of the FAFSA, it's used for first and foremost tuition, then probably housing and dormitory, and then personal expenses.
If you're talking about scholarships now, that's a little bit different. You know, at my college, for example, there are what we call full ride scholarships that pays for your tuition and your room and board. But typically, scholarships are more for the academics to pay for the tuition, right? The room and board is less common to receive scholarships.
Yeah. We should probably make a designation for everybody here between financial aid and scholarships. Financial aid comes from a government agency or a state agency and is based on the family's need. What is their income and what is their outgo and what is their responsibilities? So it's all awarded based on a need formula that the government has. Scholarship is usually merit-based. Merit-based meaning how well do you play your instrument or sing, and how badly does an institution need that instrument? So it's based upon your audition for admission, and they'll consider you for scholarship at that same time. There's also academic scholarships. At universities, they often have a scholarship for academic achievement, a high GPA or a special award of some type. But in the music world, scholarships are usually merit-based, and you don't pay back a scholarship. A scholarship is, here's the money, we expect you to use it to go to school. Financial aid, often you have to pay back over a long number of years to a bank, to the government, the monies that you're awarded.
And not to get into the weeds too much, but I do think it's helpful. There's a difference between endowed scholarships, where someone or an institution or organization has given a pot of money to offer as scholarships to students, and they essentially offer the interest off of that pot of money each year as scholarships. And then basically just kind of their discounts, really, right? That they discount the tuition for certain students because they're that good or because they need them. If you're a bass player and you can read music, you got a scholarship, you know? If you're in popular music, if you're a female singer and you don't play an instrument, less chance. I'm told that at Belmont, for example, there are something like 700, popular music students. It's in Nashville. Over 30% of the students are female singers, right? So it does have a lot to do with the need of the institution to fill bands, to fill ensembles, right? To fill studios.
To perhaps close out this piece of the financial aspect of things, Andrew, you cannot start planning for a college education too early. Okay, anybody that starts thinking about it or a family that starts thinking about it when the student is starting to apply to college is way, way too late in most instances. Now, certainly there are very affluent families that have the resources to pay for college easily without planning for it. But the majority of families need to think about, how am I going to pay for college? Not when the student's finishing high school, but probably before they even get into high school. You can't really plan too early or begin to educate yourself with what's out there in order for me to pay to go to college. It's quite an undertaking.
Yes. Now, Steve, when would be a good time for students to start thinking about the application process? And at what point in high school should they start working on that?
I would say that the beginning of the junior year is the time to start thinking about it seriously. That doesn't mean you can't think about it as a freshman or as a sophomore. And it's worthwhile to start researching and thinking about these things, discussing it with your music teachers, with your friends when you're younger. But certainly by the time you're in your junior year, you have 10 months of school or 9 months of school to start figuring out all the things we're talking about here. And why do I say that? Because as soon as you begin your senior year, September, October, you have to start filing applications. Application deadlines are often as early as November, but certainly December 1st is the majority of them. So the minute you hit your senior year, you're hitting the road, you're hitting the ground running. So you can't first start thinking about the considerations that we're discussing here in September of your senior year. You should start thinking about these things, doing your research, getting in touch with David or I in your junior year, or even earlier.
At Catawba, I love to see students coming to visit their junior year. It's wonderful, especially the fall of their junior year. Another problem, if you wait till your senior year, if there's a deficit you need to make up for, you don't have the time really to do so, right? If you especially if you take a trial lesson, if you get some outside perspective on what you can do well and what you need to grow with, if you're still a junior or a sophomore, or even better, you have time to grow into an even better, potential student for schools.
You know, Andrew, students that work with David and I through Inside Music School, we often provide a suggested or recommended list of colleges, no less than 8 or 9, and often 10 or 12, or often as many as 15 schools to consider. Okay, we're not saying these are the schools you must apply to and nothing else. We're saying these are a list of 12 schools that fit your criteria that you've told us about and fit your talent and your skills, etc. Okay, now think about how long it takes to research 12 schools, the faculty, the curriculum, how much does it cost to go there? Okay, you need a good, solid academic year to do that research in a thorough way. So when September 1 of your senior year comes around, you're not scuffling. You've already narrowed your list of 12 schools, maybe down to a manageable 6 or 8. You know which ones are the strongest for what you're looking for. So that's why I say the junior year is the time to really get serious about all of this stuff.
A question that came in here, could you talk more about how we go about contacting colleges and setting up opportunities to get to know an institution? Just about every website for colleges and universities has prominently displayed on their homepage, future students, right? And just follow that, and they're delighted to have an admissions counselor speak with you. I would say the hazard is this. If it's a small school, if it's a big school, it'd be a admission counselor for the music program. If it's a smaller school, they'll just put you with a general admissions counselor. You want to, as quickly as you can, even if you have to push the issue, to speak to someone in music. We are musicians. Musicians speak, we all speak the same language. A general admissions counselor is maybe not going to understand what you're asking, what you need. So you're going to find it on the website. If you go to a big school, go to the music department, the School of Music website, and likely there'll be a link to show you how to contact their admission staff. Right.
So to answer Zane, a little bit more completely, it's very, very hard to get to know the real insides of any given school. And the bigger the school, the more difficult it is. However, you've got some of the following resources, Zane. The website. Those websites are well-written and very thorough in terms of curriculum, in terms of what who the faculty are, in terms of what the ensemble opportunities are available to you, in terms of who teaches what of your instrument. So certainly use the website to its fullest. Next, you can speak with an admissions person in the music department, hopefully, and ask all your questions, Zane. So besides reading the website, speaking with somebody in admissions. Now let's go further. You can often ask for the email address of a certain teacher that teaches the music department, and they will often communicate with you via text, via email, or often they'll get on the phone with you or a Zoom call, and you can begin a conversation with them in that way. And then, of course, lastly, a visit to the school is always worthwhile. Visiting the school, you will be able to get a feel for what is the environment like there. What are the students like there? What does it feel like to you? So certainly visiting a school is a positive thing. What I'd like to say about visits to schools, they're commercials. They're showing you the best that they have to offer. The tour guides have been trained to smile. They've been trained to talk about the best things that school has to offer. So the teachers, to some degree, are not even as qualified to know everything about the school beyond their department as the tour guides. But I'll tell you, for my money, Andrew, the best people to talk to if you're on campus is the students in the cafeteria.
Absolutely.
Eat lunch at the college dining hall. Look around. Do the students look engaged? Do they look happy? Are they trading CDs? Are they writing music? And they're happy to take a question. You walk up to any student and say, can I ask you a question about the music department here? I guarantee you they will never say no, because they remember when they were in your situation. The students really will give you the real deal. So, Zane, the website, the admissions office, the faculty conversations, and maybe best of all is a visit and speaking with students on campus.
Yeah. And when you do take a visit, you have the opportunity to see like of the ensemble that you want to perform in, whether it's the wind ensemble or the symphony orchestra or the choir or the jazz ensemble. You get to attend a rehearsal and see here, talk to the musicians, see how the ensemble director works with that ensemble. It opens up so many opportunities by going there. If you have,
and don't be bashful about that sort of thing. Remember, in sort of stark terms, you're potentially the paying customer here. Mm-hmm. Say, I would like to go to a rehearsal. I would like to hang out. I'd like to go to a music class. I'd like to hang out with a couple of music majors. Is there somebody that might go take me to the cafeteria for lunch? Be proactive, be assertive about that sort of thing.
Yeah. And in this environment, don't be swayed by the fact that you can't travel and go there in person, because you know what? You can just jump online. I've had so many students come in and say, I'm interested in your program. I say, here, come to our class this week online, wherever you are. They can, since many of these ensembles are being offered online right now, they could be brought in. So don't be dissuaded by the situation going on with COVID right now. There's tremendous opportunities. For being a professor, you are our future students. So we love to hear from you. We want you to see the program, and we're going to encourage and make that opportunity for you, because recruiting is very important to us.
Andrew, to finish up perhaps and answer Monique's question, during COVID, almost no colleges are doing in-person tours. Mm-hmm. There are a few that are, and they're socially distancing, etc. But virtually every college that I'm familiar with is not doing in-person tours. However, Monique, there are online virtual tours where they walk you around the campus online. It's not great, but it's okay. And you can even ask questions, I believe, and they'll give you answers. Yes, you're at a disadvantage under COVID in terms of getting to know the school intimately, but hopefully those kinds of things will change. Andrew, I'd like to bring up another quick term. I talked about a term that most students might not know before, trial lessons. There's something called pre-screening that the websites will talk about. Many colleges, music schools certainly, will require a student that wishes to apply to do a video recording that they call pre-screening. These schools get far too many applications for them to offer a live audition to everybody that applies. Okay, the University of Michigan is a huge school. They must get thousands of applications for the music department. Okay, they can't listen to thousands of people live. So they ask you to send a pre-screening video that they tell you exactly what they want you to play on the website. You send them the video and they decide if they're going to, quote, offer you a live audition or not. If you don't pass pre-screening, your application is dead in the water, meaning that the music department is not going to consider your application if you don't pass pre-screening. Every school does not require pre-screening, but many of them do. And a student has to look very carefully on the website to see under admission requirements if pre-screening is a requirement.
And with that, so we spoke about trial lessons before, and one question was how COVID is affecting that. Those trial lessons would be via Zoom, COVID or no COVID, unless you happen to live in the city of the school you're thinking of going to. So I think that doesn't change. One really great question from Robert here: what types of questions should you ask an admission counselor? I got the best one for you, and write this down. What is your retention to graduation rate in music? What is your retention to graduation rate in music? That means how many of your students stick around to graduate from your school, right? And that can give you a really quick answer about, you may not, if it's 20%, if it's only 20% of the students who start there, graduate from there, that tells you something. It doesn't necessarily say something bad about the school. It may be that the school is just so selective that they jettison 75% of the students along the way. The University of Massachusetts Lowell is very famous recording arts program. they get rid of 75% of the freshmen after their first year. But it can also tell you whether it's a school that students find valuable enough to remain there until they graduate. So that would be the number one. That's kind of a secret question, even almost, to ask, because they're going to blanch when you ask that. How do you even know that term? Right. So, but I think it's a really important question to ask.
I think for the student, although I think maybe Emma asked this question, what's going on with trial lessons during COVID? I can tell you that it has not stopped, that David and I have set up, I can tell you, since the school year began, maybe a dozen trial lessons. They're all done via Zoom with the teacher. They're very, very capable. They're used to doing it because they're teaching all their classes and all their students online these days. So private teachers are happy to do a trial lesson, and they're happy and able to do them via Zoom. That's not a problem at all. Now, when we don't have COVID, going to the school and doing a trial lesson in person probably is better. But certainly a trial lesson via Zoom is not at all difficult, and it is very worthwhile.
Great. And also through the Soundhouse, we have a website called Soundhouse Artist Access, and we have over 100 artists on there. And we've worked with Steve on some preparing some students for auditions by studying with some of the artists on that site. So that's a good one to check out, or contact the college and reach out to the professor and see if you can arrange a Zoom meeting or any other time. There's another question in here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm guessing that students are passing their questions through Emma because
Yes.
Yeah. So a student wants to know about how do they distinguish themselves and stand out on their audition. Difficult, especially when you're a guitarist, like this student is asking about. And the requirements at the audition, as that person is mentioning, are usually fairly similar. They want you to play 3 or 4 charts. They want you to solo. They want you to, improvise, etc. Okay. However, the other way, besides just performing expertly on your audition, is to be able to do the other parts of the audition exceptionally well. Besides the prepared piece, or 3 that you're going to play the head and then you're going to improvise, if you can do the sight reading portion, and if you can do the ear training portion of an audition exceptionally well, you're going to have a couple of ways, you're going to be able to stand out. Whoever asked that question, besides just playing your prepared piece, work on your sight reading, because many schools will ask you to sight read during the audition. And they'll also do some ear training exercises where they may ask you to sing back a melody. They may ask you to recognize some intervals. They may play some triads or seventh chords and ask you to recognize the quality of them. So if you can stand out in sight reading and ear training, besides the prepared piece, that's a way to be a step up on other students.
I would say in popular music, it's a little bit more difficult to give cut and dried answers with that. I would say just from the years of auditions that we've heard, no gymnastics. Don't try to impress us with how fast you can play, right? As young musicians, we all did that. We got over it, and just ignore it. It annoys us. Right. So it's better to show what your heart is as a popular musician than how fast you can play, right. So,
just to close out the question that David just addressed, I think the worst thing that a student can do was choose material to play that they think the school wants to hear. In my time in college admissions, we wanted to hear students play what they play the best.
Absolutely.
What do you relate to? What type of music? We don't care whether it's heavy metal or jazz or it's a Beethoven sonata. You should play what allows you to express yourself the best. If you're not a jazz player, don't play a John Coltrane or a Miles Davis song. it's not going to work.
And you might want to think about that in terms of which school you're considering. If you want to be a jazz guitarist or a rock and roll guitarist, and they're going to make you perform audition on Bach, if you love Bach, fine. But if it's not your thing, it says something about the school that's what they want. That, oh yeah, sure, you can play, you can study rock guitar here, kid. But we need to hear you play some Bach. That may not be a good fit for you.
All right, a couple questions. First of all, how important is it to attend some of the summer music camps offered on campuses, and are there any summer camps that you would recommend?
David and I spoke to 2 families today on the phone that asked that question. My answer to them was, it's very important. These summer music camps do a number of things. Number one, they teach you. You're going to come away from the camp knowing a whole lot about that subject matter than before you went there. Number two, you're going to get a feel for that college or university. If you attend a summer program at a school that you might eventually consider, you're going to get to know the city a little bit better. You're going to get to know the school a little bit better. You're going to come away saying, you know what? I don't think I like that place as much as I thought I did. Or, I love that place. I can't wait to apply. So you get to know the school, the institution. Thirdly, you're going to make friends. You're going to make friends in these programs that you're probably going to be texting with the whole school year. You might even find a collaborator to start playing with or to start writing with. And the third reason why I think it's important to attend these programs is because you will get on the radar screen of the college that you attended the summer program. If you attend a summer program at Berklee, they know that. When you then apply to Berklee and they've got a record on you already, they know that Jim Johnson, he already came for our songwriting program and now he's applying for the songwriting major here. You're already got a point or two up. So I think that if a summer program is possible, if you've got the time and you've got the resources, it's very definitely a big advantage.
Another couple of reasons to do it. I went to University of Kansas music camp when I think I was between my sophomore and junior year in high school. Now I think you've got a better situation involved with Soundhouse, but there were only like 2 or 3 other music or other students at my high school that were really into music. This was my first time I was around hundreds of other young people that were just as passionate as I was about music. It was also my first time I really got to be away from my parents for a few weeks and kind of live, have a life that was kind of sort of like an adult. So that was nice too. I also learned I don't really care much for Kansas.
Can you guys recommend some? I know there's so many different summer programs all over the country. Do you any that stick out to you?
Yeah, many, Andrew, and we will be doing a disservice to probably name some, and I'll tell you why. Not that I object to, giving due to the good ones, but first of all, a student that wants to study in a summer program for classical violin, it's going to be a whole different set of summer programs than a student that wants to study jazz guitar. Right. Or a student that wants to go for a musical theater intensive. There are many, many summer programs that are great, but they're going to be completely different schools than a heavy metal drummer wants to go to summer program for. So there's not hundreds, thousands of summer programs all across the United States. And I would say to that student, David and I would love to chat with you or work with you in time, but the summer programs are going to depend on what is your musical objective. What's the style of music you want to study and the style of music you want to play.
Awesome. Okay, another question. If applying to music school, do admissions care about non-music extracurricular?
As far as liberal arts colleges, absolutely. If there are 2 equally talented musicians, the one that has been doing some sort of meaningful extracurricular activity is of more value to us. right? And again, with liberal arts, we're looking to educate rounded individuals. So absolutely. Now, it can also help with scholarships. I have music majors that are also getting like a soccer scholarship as well. Or even better nowadays, I have music majors, music major that's getting an esports scholarship. So he's getting a scholarship for playing online games. So yeah, no, it can. So the extracurricular activity can be lots of different things.
That's good.
So Andrew, I think our audience should understand the three of us are coming from very different places, and therefore we have different perspectives on things. We don't even agree all the time on the answers to these questions. Andrew, you come from a university setting. Is that right?
Yes,
and,
California State University.
And a state university.
Yes.
Okay. David comes from a liberal arts college. And my background is from a music conservatory. So we're all coming from different places, and our answers, they should understand, are all somewhat personal. I would answer that question that David just answered slightly differently. If the question was, do music schools look at and consider extracurricular activities, I would say very little. It's all about your musical training, background, and it comes down to those 20 minutes in the audition. It just may be the most important 20 minutes of your whole life. Okay, now, certainly they want well-rounded, intelligent, helpful people on campus, but I don't think if you were on JV basketball team or if you were on the rowing team, it's going to necessarily make the difference between being accepted to a music school or not being accepted to a music school. So that's where, they're going to get different answers from the university person, such as yourself, David, and myself.
And that's very well said, Steve. In my case, I went to a major university, but was a Bachelor of Music, where I was expected to practice saxophone 6 hours a day. Some of my classmates, that was great. That they lived for that. I was just climbing the walls doing that. And then I found out there's this thing called ethnomusicology, where you can study culture and music, other cultures, and I was always running off to, to ethnic restaurants and festivals and so forth. I thought, oh, that's for me. So it depends on your major. It definitely depends on your major. If you want to be a performance major, there are thousands of other people practicing right now the same instrument that you want to master, right? So extracurricular. You don't have time for extracurricular, kid.
I think you've touched on the most important thing that I always teach my students, and it's very frustrating, but the answer is most likely, it depends. Is this a good deal? It depends. It could be a good deal for this side, but not this side, But since we're on this topic about other areas, can students study in more than one major area? I mean, could they do majors in music and minors in an academic subject, or major in academic subject and minor in music, or different areas of the music areas that they can, do composition and performance, or what else?
The answer to that, Andrew, is yes and no.
It depends.
It depends.
Okay. It's up to the school. Okay. Usually, universities are going to have a lot of options. You can have a major and a minor. You can have a dual major. You can have a dual degree. You can study and have a major in an academic subject and a double major in a music subject. The larger the school, the more possibilities. Boston University, NYU, they have hundreds, thousands of combinations. The smaller and the more what do I want to say? I don't want to say vocationally oriented, but the smaller the school and the more specialized, the fewer options there might be. For instance, a classical conservatory is likely to only allow you to study what it is you got into the school. If you're a violin performance major, that's all they're going to allow you to do. They don't expect you to also be minoring in psychology, especially if they're giving you a scholarship. They want you doing what David said, practicing 6 hours a day, playing in every ensemble they have, and they don't want to hear about, other interests. Now, the bigger the school and the less specialized, there are ways to study double majors, a major and a minor, a major and a concentrate. What's the difference? A major, in order to get a major, it's somewhere around studying around 60 credits of whatever it is you're studying. Let's say you're studying songwriting, you're going to take somewhere around 60 credits of songwriting. A minor is going to be maybe half of that. Maybe your minor will be 30 credits or less in a certain area. And a concentrate might be only 15 or 18 credits. So you can put together these different combinations: 2 majors, a major and a minor, a major and a concentrate. There's much more available than there used to be many years ago in combinations. And minors can be in another music subject, or they can be in an academic subject: poetry, Spanish.
I think liberal arts schools are the exception to what Steve was saying about the size of the school. My closest colleagues at Catawba are psychology professor and history professor. I have several. Maybe there's a half a dozen of us in music, but just by structure, we're much closer to other departments. So it's very common at my school that we have a student that's double majoring in psychology in music or biology in music, right?
So I think students want to know, does the acceptance rate at a college indicate the value or the reputation or the prestige? Basically, the answer is yes. Basically, there are schools that have acceptance rates in the single digits. I usually say to students, you know what? If you're applying to that given college that may have an acceptance rate of 5%, Andrew, or 6%, you might get into Harvard or Yale easier than getting in there. Okay, so the fact of the matter is that it's like anything else. When there's very few spots and a lot of people want it, it becomes a very, very desirable commodity, a very desirable institutional program. So if there's a low acceptance rate, and it doesn't have to be in the single digits, 10%, 15%, that's a low acceptance rate. Those schools are highly competitive, and usually with that comes along prestige and reputation, okay? However, there are schools that David and I recommend that are excellent, and they have acceptance rates maybe in the 30 percentile or even the 40 percentile. That does not reflect on their reputation or prestige. I can tell you they are excellent schools. So the answer is, most of the time, the acceptance rate is a reflection of prestige and reputation, but not always.
And let's keep in mind too that prestige and the quality of the students that are there, it doesn't necessarily translate into them being successful professionally in music afterwards. I mean, there have to be, let me not beat up on viola players here, but there have to be 20 times, 100 times the number of viola students studying at colleges and universities than there are positions for violists out there. So even if you get into one of the best viola schools in the country, it doesn't necessarily translate into you're going to be in a major symphony playing viola.
Yeah. I should just tell folks that if they go to InsideMusicSchools.com, there's a section there of blogs that we've written over the years, maybe 20 blogs or so. I'm just about ready to put out a blog called Comparative Acceptance Rates at the 30 top colleges around the United States music schools. So I'm going to provide what are the acceptance rates at these schools. However, I'm going to say this in the article, take it all with a grain of salt, okay? The best music school for any given person is not reflected in the acceptance rate. It's reflected in the curriculum, the faculty, and the peers that you'll be working and studying with. Okay, forget the acceptance rate. If those three things are in your favor, you're going to have a wonderful college experience. If you get into a college with a 7% acceptance rate and it doesn't have the kind of students that you want to be surrounded by, it's going to be a miserable experience for you.
Since we're on that topic now, let me ask you this question. What role can a music college consultant play in finding the right fit school and helping prepare for the application and audition process? And before you answer that, take a little pressure off of you, just in a different area. When my son was applying for colleges, we hired a private consultant that was in the local area that had worked with a lot of students. And it was a tremendous experience because this person helped our son write the essays and pull out of him, what little activities he may have done, which he didn't think was a big deal, but was a big deal for the application. And it was tremendously helpful. He was applying for computer science and he ended up getting into UC Santa Barbara with that degree. But that consultant was extremely helpful.
So to answer that question, Andrew, got me, I don't know.
It may be better for me to answer it for Steve rather than he answering it for himself. Steve does a wonderful job at really, first of all, getting to know the student, not only as a musician, but his or her aspirations, real aspirations. And this is after having worked with hundreds of students of pulling those sorts of things out and getting to understand that, and then matching it with this, encyclopedic knowledge he has of what schools are out there and what differentiates one from another. And then helping the student prepare, for an audition, to come up with a list of schools and then to prepare for an audition to be successfully accepted at one of those schools or more than one.
So Andrew, there are thousands of college coaches, advisors, consultants, whatever you want to call them around the country, and you had a good experience. All of us can do the things such as help a student with their application, help them with a common app. I won't even get into that, okay? Help with essay writing, help with, a resume. Okay, most of us can do that all quite well. However, what I think David and I bring to the table that perhaps you might agree, those other general advisors and consultants don't really know the world of music. In fact, they rarely know the world of the arts at all. They're pretty much the common denominator. They know the academic institutions, they know the universities, what they're looking for. But when a student says, I want to be a composer, they're lost. When a student says, I want to be a dancer, I want to be a ballet dancer, they're lost. Mm-hmm. So what David and I bring to the table that very, very few, if at all, consultants can do is we know what the music student needs to excel on their application. We know what those essays should be about. We know how to prepare for the pre-screening. We know how to prepare them for their audition. We know how to then create a list of schools that would be appropriate for them based on their criteria and their talents and their skills. This is where the general college consultant usually falls short.
Right. And so just to reaffirm for everybody there, this company is called InsideMusicSchools.com. The URL is in the YouTube chat, and you can go to the website and you can see all the things that they offer. I mean, you've already seen from this discussion how complex it can be, because there's not a one size fits all. Here we are representing different areas of music schools, as David said. I represent state universities, California State University, Northridge. David is with a liberal arts college, Catawba, and Steve comes from the conservatory side with Berklee College of Music. There's different pros and cons of each thing, and it all depends what is the right fit for you. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the process of when you work with a consultant is, if you just, follow a list, you're going to pick something and it may not be a right fit. They'll go through this process of asking these questions and making sure, what do you really want to do? What's your dream? What's your desire? College can be very expensive. You don't want to waste a lot of money and have it be the wrong thing. And then all of a sudden you're in debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's also those 4 years between 18 and 21, basically speaking, are your golden years to grow as a musician. You're not going to have the responsibilities of typically of having a job, of having a family, children, a spouse and children. It's just a golden moment for you to grow as a musician. And so it's all the more important that you find the most fertile environment in which to grow.
I think all three of us, Andrew, I think you might agree, and David, your college years are perhaps your most important formative years of your life. You will be training for your career, of which all three of us probably have more than 100 years together, perhaps, in working at a career. It's a long time to be working at something that you're not well prepared for or that you don't love. So you want to pick a school that will help you work in the industry at the level you want to work at. The other thing is you're going to meet people, I'm sure we can all say this, that you're going to make as your network, your foundation of friends and other musical acquaintances, perhaps for the rest of your life. Some of us might even say we met our partners for life at that college. College is really the foundation of building this skyscraper called life. And if you don't have a good foundation, that skyscraper is going to be a little bit wobbly. So these 4 years that I consider to be the foundation of your adulthood cannot be overestimated.
Yes. And, we talked about this earlier about the culture of the university or the college or the conservatory, and that becomes your family. And Steve emphasized an important term, which is a critical element of success in life, almost more than the talent sometimes. And that's your network. You're building your network. And whether it's about, your friend is playing on a gig and then they're leaving the band and they call you because there's an opening because you're a friend. I mean, your next job is going to come from somebody most likely. So you're building that lifelong network. Not in addition to that, your friendships. I mean, I'm still really close friends with my college music students. It's lifelong friendships and opportunities together. And then we've done business together. So it's a tremendous family and tribe to be a part of. Yeah, you don't have to go to music school. You could do it on your own, but then you have to build that tribe outside of school, and it's hard. It's a lot of work. Here you're put together with a lot of people. You're playing in ensembles with them. You're going on tours with them. You are taking classes, and then you start to do projects together. And it's an incredibly rewarding experience. I love when my students are starting businesses together and working on the development of new ideas for the music industry.
And I would add, don't judge what college will be based on your experience with high school. If you didn't particularly enjoy aren't particularly enjoying high school, don't think that you're not going to like college or university. You may find that you just absolutely thrive in that environment.
Andrew, I'd like to invite all of our audience to follow up with any questions they might have that were not answered tonight or that they think about after we hang up here. If they would like to write, let's start with my email and they'll perhaps get an answer from either myself or from Dr. Fish. So my email is steve@insidemusicschools with an S.com. steve@insidemusicschools.com. Or you can go onto our website, insidemusicschools.com, where there's a contact page and a form that you can give us your name and your email address and ask a question or ask anything you want. So we are happy to follow up with you. We'll answer questions for you. Obviously, we can just go so far in that format. But if you've got something that is a burning question, by all means, we'd like to help you.
Great. So we have about 10 minutes left. I just want to make sure if there's any additional questions that people want to ask, this is your opportunity to ask it amongst the panelists that focus on different areas.
I would be interested in asking a question of them. So,
Okay.
so how many? There are about how many tuned in?
About 20 or so.
Okay. Of those 20, is there a way to raise your hand or something other? How many of you are considering majoring in music?
Let's see. Here, okay, we've got, you can post it in the Q&A, yes.
And also of those who are thinking of majoring, what are you thinking of majoring?
Okay,
Or,
yeah.
what are you thinking of
What's your
pursuing?
subject areas out there, your
Yeah, there you
specific
go.
music subject area?
Yeah. Jazz, guitar, or what? Music
I know we did see a
education.
jazz guitar question early, so
Mhm.
that for sure is one. Who else do we have here?
Okay. If you
Oh, classical piano.
Yeah, so Andrew, that brings up a good point that you said classical piano. I'd like to tell the audience that the areas that David and I in Inside Music Schools, and by the way, while we are the principals, we have many, many faculty and associates that are specialists either on an instrument or in songwriting or production. We obviously don't do everything. Okay, so Andrew, I'd like to mention that we work in the following musical areas: classical music, performance and composition, jazz, musical theater, production and engineering, songwriting, and virtually all the contemporary fields of music, I'd say. So jazz, contemporary music, classical, performance and composition, musical theater, production and engineering. Those are the 5 broad areas that we're helping students with. So please don't think that if we talk too much about jazz tonight, that we're only jazz interested, or if we talk too much about production, we're only production oriented. You know, we're very broad. Our experiences and backgrounds are quite broad and unique.
The website, the Inside Music Schools website, it gives you a good idea of the types of students that we've worked with, specifically, or especially Steve has worked with, and where they've gone to school.
I also think there are 6 or 7 student videos on Inside Music Schools, different students that we worked with that went to all different colleges afterwards and all different majors that are talking about their experience with Inside Music Schools. It's worth listening to. It's a little bit of a commercial, sure, but you'll hear about how they went about it when they were a high school junior.
We have a lot of broad interest here. We've got someone interested in jazz studies, performance, and film composition. Another one, jazz trumpet. We've got jazz saxophone, who was admitted to Berklee and waiting to hear back from some other schools. We've got tuba. Hey, if you're a tuba player, you're in good running. This is something that every school needs, and the opportunity to get scholarships if you're a good tuba player would be really great. So tuba, we got a classical piano, we've got a woodwind, jazz and classical, and music production and composition. And
that's one person, all of those different things?
Oh,
that's wonderful. You young kids.
Musical theater. Daughter wants to study musical theater, and another one's music theory and jazz trumpet performance again. So there's a lot of variety of interests here. And just remember, on the composition side, make sure you know which type of composition. Do you want to do more serious classical composition, or do you want to do more popular music composition or media composition for film, television, video games? They're different. So you want to make sure you get in the program. If you're interested in serious classical music, then there's certain programs that are perfect for that. And then if you're interested in media, then there's other programs that are good for that too. So just make sure it's not just one category. Even that area gets sliced up into different areas. And then you have songwriting and all that. What else do we have here?
I would say, by the way, that inside music schools and between David's experience and mine, there was nothing that was mentioned there that we would be unable to really make a big
Yeah.
difference in jazz and woodwinds and classical music, music production, composition, musical theater, tuba, classical piano. I mean, I've now worked with about 200 students and families since I've left Berkeley. I work doing this work with about 200 families, and I would say it covers the wide, broad spectrum of every aspect of the music industry.
And the music industry is very broad. You know, there's you could be on the performance side, you could be on the education side, you could be on the business side. Music therapy is a big area. You know, ethnomusicology is a huge area. There's so many different flavors. It's a lot more deep and broad than it used to be. And
and don't feel that you have to fit into the round pegs that education, just the nature of it, schools have to create degrees that attract a large amount of students, but I heard somebody there, classical, chamber music and production. That's great. I mean, look at Andrew versus Steve versus me. We've had very different careers in music, very different. And I think that's true for just about every professional musician you're going to meet. You wind up with very different careers, and partly you're successful because you're different than everybody else. So that's something to don't feel like you have to fit into, or if you feel compelled to fit into, if you're, a square peg and you're being, however that works, and you feel you need to be forced into a round slot at a school, well, that may not be the school for you.
Right. And with these online lessons, you have the ability to study with any of the greatest musicians in the world that you are interested in studying with. Just take that lesson with them. Could be somebody in the Berlin Philharmonic or the Chicago Symphony or the New York Philharmonic. Doesn't matter. You can get a lesson and see if that's a right area that you want to go into. And, if you're interested more in the, like say the contemporary side or popular music side, you might build a business that is, you're streaming and you're doing social media and all that stuff. I mean, we live in what we call the DIY, the do-it-yourself world. There's tremendous applications out there for you to broadcast your live broadcast your concerts, or to be able to administer your publishing catalog or whatever. There's, become up to speed on social media and how to promote yourself and all that stuff. I mean, business is at the, main source of being in this business. You have to know how to promote yourself. So there's a lot of opportunities today in this environment.
Andrew, one of the closing statements that I'd like to make to some of the parents that might be listening. If you're feeling somewhat stressed out and overwhelmed by this, you are not alone. What we've talked about tonight, as Andrew might have alluded to, is a very complex system. A music major applying to be at a university or a conservatory setting, it's not like applying to a university to be an English major, where you send in your transcripts and your SAT or ACT scores and you just wait for an answer. It ain't like that. As we've said, there's pre-screening, there's auditions, there's portfolios, there's things that other students don't have to go through or jump through those hoops. So this is a complex, complicated role that you're taking on as a parent of a music student. It is overwhelming. Don't feel that you must be out of step if you're feeling that stress and anxiety. It is going to happen.
Great. Well, I want to wrap this up now. We're at the end of our webinar. So I want to let everybody know that this has been recorded and it'll be posted on the Caleb Chapman Soundhouse YouTube channel where it is now. So if you missed something and you want to go back and listen to it again, it's there for all eternity. And then follow up with InsideMusicSchools.com. If you need some help from experts that have done this for years and years and years and know all the different flavors of programs and schools and areas to study in, reach out to them. These are terrific guys. I've known them for many, many years in this business through networking. These are the best. These are the best people, and I would put my reputation on the line for them. So
believe it or not, we're the best people.
Steve Lippman and David Lee Fish, thank you from Inside Music Schools, and thank you for Caleb Chapman Soundhouse for sponsoring this event for our students, our parents, our educators, and we're happy to help at any time.
Thank you for inviting into your house, Andrew.
We hope to hear from some of you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.